Tonight we are comparing the Canik TP9SFX to the mainstay of IDPA shooting and the ugly stepchild of USPSA shooting. It's the Glock 34. Are you ready? Stand by. So both of the guns we're looking at tonight have competition pedigrees. They are both plastic striker fired guns with 5-inch barrels to maximize velocity and sight radius. And here we are doing the thing that people on the internet love to do, which is comparing one thing to another thing. So let the thing comparing begin.
Yeah, baby!
So as these are both competition guns, we are going to be grading them as if they are only competition guns. And I need your help in the comments section to tar and feather anybody who starts talking about everyday carry in the context of these two guns. These are competition guns so far as you and I are concerned for the purpose of this video. So let's start with the frame. Now the frame on the Glock is big and bumpy. It's got a medium bumpy texture which provides decent traction when your hand is dry and crappy traction when it's wet. Whereas the frame for the Canik is much more svelte, it fits your hand better, and the traction is significantly worse. Because of how the guns are contoured, the Glock being more blocky across the front strap and the back strap, the Glock feels easier to stabilize in recoil. The angle of the Glock also kind of helps that because it makes you turn your wrist over, which helps you lock your wrist and keep the gun more flat. But that said, reaching the magazine release on the Glock is difficult, and people cry all over the internet about the inability to drop magazines free, whereas the access to the Canik TP9SFX mag release is super easy. Access to the slide stop is about the same on both pistols. The slide stop on the Glock is relatively small and in the right place. The slide stop on the Canik is gigantic and gets in the way of your support hand. The minimalist frame on the Glock allows you to build a strong support hand grip, providing excellent traction. Both frames have that stupid thumb indentation that you should never ever place your thumb in unless you want to miss what you're aiming at. The Canik frame is probably going to do better with trigger reach for small-handed shooters than the Glock will, but the Glock has back straps which actually increase the length of pull on the trigger, so large-handed shooters will probably have an easier time with the Glock frame. The Glock slide stop is ambi, so lefties can pretend like manufacturers care what they think, and the Canik gives absolutely zero about what lefties think. The magazine well on the Glock is cavernous and probably the best in the segment, at least in the divisions the Glock 34 will be competing in, whereas the magazine well on the Canik is hard to see with the naked eye and just as difficult to reload with. So my pick in this category, if you make me choose one, is going to be the Glock. The frame helps you stabilize how the gun tracks better, and the name of the game is keeping the gun stable while you shoot at speed in competition, so the Glock wins in the frame debate. And I don't care if you don't like the fact it's blocky. The next category we're going to be looking at is the trigger. Now, the Glock trigger is the standard to which all other guns are judged. So what that means is here on YouTube, every single gun any gun reviewer has, they're going to compare whatever they're looking at's trigger and tell you how much better it is than a Glock trigger. Whereas the Canik's trigger is amazing right out of the box. In fact, it's probably the best out of the box trigger for any striker gun. You make me pick one in this one, it's going to be the Canik. Canik wins by a huge margin. The trigger is significantly better than is the Glock. Now, if you rate the secondary controls, we're talking about the mag release and the slide stop. The Glock slide release I like better because it's smaller and doesn't get in the way. The Glock mag release I absolutely hate. Whereas the Canik mag release I absolutely love. They give you a bunch of buttons you can change out for whatever height you prefer. But the slide release is kind of goofy shaped and gets all over your palm if you get real high on your support hand grip. So in the context of USPSA shooting, the mag release is going to be more important than is the slide release. So I'm going to give the nod to the Canik in this category because the mag release is significantly better than the Glock. Now we're going to talk about accuracy, and both guns have absolutely titanically long slides with very long barrels that in theory provide amazing accuracy. In the Gen 5 model Glocks, the barrel was upgraded to the marksman barrel, and as a result the Gen 5s are appreciably more accurate than previous generations, and I'll go so far as to say they are probably the most accurate gun in this segment, which is the plastic striker gun segment. Whereas the Canik, at least this Canik, I can't get it to group at all. This gun, off a rest at 25 yards, I can shoot sub 2-inch groups with. This gun, I'm lucky if I can shoot 3.5-inch groups. Generally, my groups off the rest with this gun and my competition ammo were grouping between 4.5 to 5.5 inches off a rest with an electronic sight. It's not me at that point, guys. This gun, well, this specific model of this gun, this specific instance of this gun was inaccurate for me. It's good enough, you can hit largely what you're aiming at, but the Glock can do hole-on-hole accuracy. So in this category, I have to give it to the Glock. You knew it was coming, and I had to do it. And a large part of scoring well in competitions is how much time you don't spend making your gun work. If you watched this channel and you saw my review on the Canik TP9SFX, which like a solid dozen of you did, that's awesome, thanks for checking it out. You can watch this gun choke on rounds time after time. In the evaluation period, I probably had over a dozen stovepipes in 200 rounds. Whereas if you watch this channel regularly, you've seen my Glock 34s compete in a bunch of matches with literally tens of thousands of rounds and almost no malfunctions. The only malfunctions my Glocks have ever had have been ammo related. So in this category, the Glock wins in a very big way. Next, we need to talk about an aftermarket because it's not any fun if you buy your fancy new pistol and you have no holster or anything to put it in. So the Glock and all of the accessories on the firearms market are all made for Glock and all of the other brands. Whereas the Canik, it's supported decently well. You can find holsters from major manufacturers at this point in time and not just small Kydex shops. Magazines are hard to find. Sights aren't widely available, but at the same time, this gun doesn't need new sights because it has absolutely fantastic sights right out of the box. There are small companies that are doing Canik specific things, so you have a couple options in each of the categories. Whereas with the Glock pistol, you can literally paralyze yourself with indecision due to just how many options are available to change out basically every single part on the pistol. So the Glock clearly wins in this segment. However, there is enough support for the Canik to have it be viable in the competition space. So there's some other things that are sort of less important, not exactly core competencies for the guns, but are worth discussing. So if we talk about the slides on the guns, the Canik has all this whiz-bang slide cuts going on. Look, you can see me through the slide ports over the barrel in the Canik, which is great because that lets a bunch of dust and lint and whatever finds its way into your holster into the action of your gun. That said, the way the Canik slide is set up, they have slenderized it, trying to reduce the amount of metal at the top of the slide to keep all the weight as low and close to the bore as they can. The downside to this gun heats up a lot really, really fast. After about 100 rounds on the range, I like to charge guns by the front cocking serrations like this. After about 100 rounds, it became painful to do so, whereas I can shoot 400 to 500 rounds with my Glock, which has this big blocky slide. It's basically just a piece of bar stock that was hollowed out with the corners chamfered. I can shoot a lot through this gun before the slide heats up too much to be too hot to touch. Now this is honestly a first world problem, and it's only going to affect you high burn competition shooters. If you're shooting 50 rounds at the range, you're not going to notice the difference between the two. So I think the Canik slide looks cooler. I do think that the Glock slide is probably more functional from an ingress standpoint for debris, as well as a longevity standpoint on the range. If you make me pick, I'll probably pick the simple closed slide of the Glock, but I do like the look of the Canik slide. The optics plate systems for both of these guns. The Glock boasts the MOS. They were sort of one of the OG optics ready guns on the market. The plates are made out of steel, they are super thin, and they actually do a reasonably good job of sinking the optic down to get it close to the bore. Whereas the plates for the Canik are made out of aluminum, they are super thick, they stand up pretty tall, and the optic basically rides flush with the top of the slide. That said, both come with 4 plates. The Canik comes with a slide racker that screws into your optics plates, which is completely worthless in all forms of competition unless you want to shoot open in USPSA, but they're providing value, I guess. But the optics plate system, I would say that the Caniks are probably less likely to have problems go wrong with it. The MOS does have some reported issues with some of the plates being warped and not riding flush. I've got 5 MOS guns and I've never had a problem with the MOS slide plate. I'm going to call it a draw on that front. Let's get on to the iron sights. If you're the kind of person who still competes with iron sights in 2020, the iron sights that come on the Glock are super total trash. They are absolute garbage and there is no defending them, even if you're one of the 15 people on the internet who thinks they shoot well with them. And if you've seen what Glock sells its metal sights for, they're like $15 or $20, which means they're probably getting them for like $5. Just give us metal sights. It can be your lousy U-dot sight picture. The Warren sights that come on the Canik are absolutely fantastic. Warren makes a great rear sight. Their front sight is a shorter fiber optic sight, so the optic won't bloom and be overpowering the front sight in bright sunlight, but there's going to be enough of a red dot there where you can track it. These are first-rate sights. They're not my beloved Dawson Precision sights, but at the same time, if this were my gun, I certainly wouldn't change these sights out. These are fantastic sights. Big points for the Canik in this arena. Canik wins the sight game. So here we are, guys. We've made it to the end of the video where I deliver my final verdict and you guys all tell me how wrong and what I didn't consider and all that great stuff. I'm looking forward to it as much as I know you are. But first, if you're subscribed to this channel, you know the sacred bond that exists between creator and viewer. So I will deliver you world-class firearms content for free here on YouTube. You will watch this content, and then you will sideline your career and become a horse breeder and adopt animal husbandry as your trade. You apply it for generations breeding stallions that grow patches on their fur that look like my logo. So when they finally reboot the Lord of the Rings movies in like the next 5 years, all of the horses on screen will have this logo and people all over the world will know the good work we're doing here on the channel. If you're not subscribed and this is like your 4th or 5th video, dude, just subscribe. It's free. But as always, I would appreciate a like. It helps me out in the algorithm. Hit the bell if you want to know when more of these world-class firearms videos hit your stream. So back to the show. If you make me pick between these two, the price is probably a consideration. This sucker is going to sell for just under about $500 in the 3rd quarter of 2020. This sucker sells for about $720 in 2020. Now, I have to give you sort of a caveat. People get bent around the rim on a competition gun on which one is going to save them the most money. And if you're not competing, I can understand that logic. If I tell you how much I'm spending on match fees for this year, both the local matches and traveling to major matches, I could buy both of these guns. The gun is honestly not the place to save money in a competition shooting unless you are of such means that that's all you have to spend. This is not leaving that much on the table, but if you optimize between only these two choices, I have to go with the Glock. The barrel being so much more accurate is an asset on tight target presentations. The frame being so much more well suited to keeping steady in recoil makes the gun easier to hold on target when you're shooting fast, and that's the name of the game for competition. So you gotta go with what the core competency of the thing you're trying to do is, and I just think that the Glock frame makes it significantly more stable, it's easier to shoot fast, and for that reason, I'm going to pick the Glock. So what would you pick between these two? Let me know in the comments below, and what is your biggest selling point? A lot of people really prefer triggers, in which case I can imagine picking the Canik, but I'm gonna have to pick more of a well-rounded approach and go with the Glock. I appreciate you guys watching. I'll catch you on the next one. Take care, guys.